in today's world,
Yes.
if you lose your investment in
Yes.
real estate, it's by choice. Welcome to today's episode of Real Estate in Kenya. My name is Sarah Wahogo, CEO at Username Investment Limited. Today's topic is about your profession
Yes.
and you as a lawyer.
Yes.
So we have kept telling our viewers that ensure you involve professionals
Yes.
in your land buying journey
Yes.
or in your real estate investment.
Yes.
I also keep saying that in today's world,
Yes.
if you lose your investment in
Yes.
real estate, it's by choice.
Yes.
And the reason that I say this, every other time we are doing these videos
Yes.
to enlighten our viewers.
Yes.
So information is available.
Yes. People have been empowered.
They have been empowered
Yes.
and information is available online, left, right, and center.
True.
So one of the things that we have kept telling them, ensure you engage experts. It could be a lawyer, a surveyor,
Yes.
a valuer,
Yes.
so that you don't lose your hard-earned money.
Yes.
Why do we need a lawyer in a real estate transaction?
The transaction of buying land in itself is a legal transaction.
Okay.
It's a legal process because it's you are passing a legal right from one person to another person. Secondly, it's a requirement in the law that, for instance, Section 3 of the Contracts Act requires an agreement involving a transaction in land to be in writing. And again, it must be witnessed. And the law, the Land Registration Act, provides that one of the people who can attest to execution of an agreement, it's a lawyer. Being a legal transaction and being a transaction that involves legal rights, it's therefore important to have a person with an understanding of the law to help a purchaser or a seller break down these rights, these obligations to both parties in the transaction. Yeah, so it is very important to have a lawyer. There are many instances where Kenyans have gotten into a transaction, they did not seek legal advice. And when a transaction goes wrong, that's when they rush to say, I was conned. And it is something, if they had involved a lawyer in the first place, that is something that would have been avoided. And I will give a very simple example. For instance, buying land of a deceased person from their children or beneficiaries. The law does not recognize such a transaction because the children has to go through the process of succession and appoint an administrator, then the grant is confirmed, and then they will be able to sell the land. If you bought the land from the children, and then some of the children who are not involved in the transaction come and say, wait, our brother who sold you the land did not have capacity to sell the land to you. You might easily lose your money, or even if you don't lose your money, you will have wasted time going to court, 4 or 5 years, waiting for a refund. Maybe you paid 1 million and that 1 million will not come back with interest. Yeah, so there are many other varied examples of why you need to involve a lawyer from the onset.
So, Wakili,
Yes.
one of the areas that I've seen people complain,
Yes.
one of the ways investors have lost their money
Yes.
is cases of disputed land ownership.
Yes.
So a lawyer comes in to
Yes.
help these investors verify
Yes.
the land ownership.
Yes.
So how does a lawyer do this?
There is the process we call the due diligence. Due diligence is a process through which you are able to verify, number one, ownership of the land, number two, whether the land exists, and whether, number three, the documents you are presented as ownership documents are in the hands, number one, of the rightful owner, number two, they are authentic, and number three, they relate to the land that you intend to purchase. So the first process that a lawyer assists is through due diligence. A lawyer would be able to assist you to undertake a search at the Ministry of Lands. A lawyer can go to a land's office and physically peruse the parcel file. And they are therefore able to trace the history of the land, right from the either adjudication or from allotment, if it was government land, and trace the history up to the current owner. Okay. when it comes to verification of documents, okay, you will be able to tell what kind of a title is this. Is this a leasehold title? Is this a freehold title? Because when you are undertaking this transaction, the freehold title has different documentary requirements from a leasehold title. You might also be able to tell how many years to go before a lease expires. A lawyer would also be able to help you in finding out whether the land has a dispute. Okay, is there an ongoing process, court process? Because this information now is readily available through online platforms. You can go to Kenya Law and search this parcel of land or parties and confirm, has there ever been a dispute revolving this land? How was it resolved? It was resolved in whose favor? Okay, if there are boundary disputes, a lawyer would be able to instruct a surveyor to go and confirm boundaries. So it is very instrumental to involve a lawyer from the first step, and in particular to undertake due diligence. And due diligence also involves, confirming the identity of the parties. Is the person presenting themselves as the vendor, the rightful owner of that property?
So someone who wants to save money,
Yes.
People don't want to engage experts.
Yes.
What is your message to these people?
It is very important to engage experts. I mean, you may be buying a land maybe worth 5 million, and a lawyer is charging you 2% of that, which would be 100,000, to safeguard your investment of 5 million. Yeah, but if a lawyer would be able to tell from the onset, is this a genuine transaction or is it not? If it's not a genuine transaction, the lawyer would be able to advise you to stop that transaction. If it goes wrong, a lawyer would have been able to put clauses in the agreement that would protect you in case whatever is presented to you as purchaser was not correct. Okay, so you have protected your investment of 5 million at a cost of 100,000. But most people will think 100,000 is a lot of money. But what happens if you pay 5 million, you have not done due diligence, you have no agreement in place, you can't even prove I paid 5 million to buy a parcel of land. Yes.
There are many forms and shapes of land fraud schemes.
Yes.
What are the examples that you can give, and how can a lawyer help prevent this?
The most common type of fraud is fake titles. Okay, and fake titles are generated in collaboration with land officials. Okay, so that when you go to do a search, they give you a search for the land you're doing, but they will have played with paperwork at the registry, and so that the fake title is either appears as genuine or legitimate. And that is why I say from the onset it is very important to inform a lawyer, because a lawyer would be able to go to the registry and peruse the parcel file, and if there is a missing link to the title that is being presented to you, they would be able to tell. Other than generating fake titles in collaboration with a large ministry of issues, there are people who just go to River Road and will get you a title, and you meet and assume because they have come with an original title, you assume there can no be fake title, so you proceed on with the transaction. The other most common fraud is identity theft. Okay, you are Sarah. I know you have a parcel of land in somewhere in the country. I go and get forge your ID, forge your PIN, and forge your certificate of title, and I will present myself as
Sarah.
Yes. And I am selling your land. You're not aware anywhere that Sarah is not selling her land. So that is also very common, and it is usually facilitated by the so-called brokers. Yes.
And they know you very well.
And they know you very well. They know your title. They have your ID, and they have your PIN. Or they even just forge your ID without giving specific details. And it's a common occurrence, and I have come across it many times of people presenting fake titles and fake land owners. Yes. So when it comes to that, and there is a very simple way of beating them. What we usually do is that, now with the technology, we have eCitizen. So if a seller of land comes to my office and I don't know them, what I usually do is ask them for their original ID. You go to eCitizen, you input their ID number, and then you go to forgot password. If you click forgot password, they are supposed to receive a prompt on their phone.
Yes.
If they are there with their phone and they don't receive a prompt, it is not adding up. Another very easy way of verifying is through PIN checker on iTax. You input their PIN, the PIN they have given you. If you input it, is it a genuine PIN? Does the PIN number tally with the name, and so on and so forth? Yeah. Another common fraud is spouse fraud, where people present a fake spouse. Yes, because now again it is a mandatory requirement that if it's a matrimonial property, you must get a spousal consent. So they will represent a fake spouse. Yes. So those are the major. There are many examples, but those are the major fraudulent transactions.
I have 2 follow-up questions.
Yes.
So does it mean that a lawyer has special rights
No.
compared to... No, like for example, if I go to the registry today,
Yes.
will I be allowed to peruse
No,
files?
unless it's a parcel of land you own. Yes, but
So I cannot, as Sarah, I'm not a lawyer.
You're not,
I cannot just walk into
yes.
a registry.
No.
So I think lawyers have those...
Yes, a lawyer would be able to go and see the registrar and explain the reason why I want to see this particular parcel file is for due diligence. Okay, I have my client, they are purchasing this parcel of land, so I want to peruse the parcel file, and that the registrar, upon payment of the fees, would allow you to peruse the parcel file.
So the other one is probably outside this topic.
Yes.
You've just mentioned the spousal kind of fraud.
Yes.
But it's for spousal consents, it applies to matrimonial properties.
Yes.
But the other time you said matrimonial properties is any properties that you've bought within
the marriage. Yes.
Land that I have bought.
Yes.
It's not inheritance land.
Yes.
Because we have seen a lot of cases where a family, maybe it's a mzee or a mother, who are becoming elderly and they want to dispose their land. They have to get consent from their kids. How does that work?
No. There is no law requiring children to give their consent to their parents to sell land. Yes.
So it's just the spouse who should.
It is, the law only recognizes that a spouse has an overriding interest on matrimonial property.
Okay.
Yes.
So the kids, you don't even have to consult.
You don't even have to consult. Of course, when it is agricultural land, in the villages, when you go to the land board, the land board would want to understand if you have children and you are selling your entire parcel of land, where will you take the children? And in those instances, they will always request. We want to know whether your children are aware of this transaction and whether they have consented to it. It is more of an administrative issue than a legal requirement.
Okay.
You cannot go to court and say, my father sold his land and he did not consult me as his son. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the other question, as a lawyer wakili,
Yes.
which documents do you need to ensure are in place in a land transaction?
Of course, the first document is the title document itself, because that is the document that gives the rights to the owner of the land to say, I am the owner of this land and therefore I have capacity to sell this land. So without the title, it is not a legitimate transaction, because how do you verify ownership? Okay, even when going to do a search, you need at least a copy of the title. Number 2, you need identity documents. Okay, you need to see if it's an individual, you need to see their ID card, their KRA PIN. If it's a company, you will need to see the certificate of incorporation, CR12 of confirming who are the directors, and copies of IDs of the directors to confirm the identities of these directors. Of course, the other documents are if it's a lad within a municipality, you would want to see the rates receipts to confirm whether they have been paying the rates. If it's a leasehold, you would want to see the rent clearance certificate to confirm they have been clearing the rents if and when they fall due. Yes.
The last question.
Yes.
How does a sales agreement protect a buyer's rights?
A sale agreement is a very important document from the onset of the transaction. And a prudent purchaser must involve the lawyer even when negotiating the terms of the sale agreement. Because this is the document that first will identify the seller, and therefore that agreement will give the seller his obligations. Okay, you will be able to agree on the terms of the sale. What is the purchase price? What is the mode of payment? Okay, number 3, what are the obligations of the seller? Which documents does he need to provide to complete the sale? Okay, and under what conditions will he provide these documents? An agreement also helps in providing for what happens in case parties disagree midway. Okay, for instance, you know, because an agreement is binding, what happens if midway you have paid the deposit and all of a sudden the seller decides, I was selling you my property at 1 million, I have found a purchaser for 1.2 million. Okay, does that agreement bind the purchaser and tell him if when this agreement is still valid and ongoing, you cannot sell land or offer it to another person? You know, that binds the seller to the extent that he will ensure that that transaction is completed and he cannot pull from the transaction midway. What happens again if the seller is unable to complete? Okay, for instance, the spouse declines to give the consent. Okay, what recourse does the purchaser have? What is the mode of dispute resolution in the agreement? You must agree if a dispute arises, how do you resolve it within the agreement? Do you go for mediation? Do you go for arbitration? Do you go directly to court? Yes. So those are important aspects of an agreement for sale of land, and a lay person may not understand these terms. Therefore, you would need the guidance of a lawyer to take you through all these transactions. Yes.
That's the end of today's conversation.
Thank you very
As
much.
usual, we really appreciate your insights.
Karibu sana.
Viewers, we have come to the end of today's episode of Real Estate in Kenya. We keep telling you again and again that if you lose your hard-earned investment, it's only by choice. The costs you incur for engaging an expert is so small compared to the value of your investment. Engage an expert, engage a lawyer, engage a surveyor, engage a valuer whenever you want to make these decisions. It helps you a lot, and it helps you protect your investment. Thank you so much for watching. See you in our next episode.